Hello again, welcome. So what we're going to do with this video is talk about the very basics of structure. And when we're talking about structure, what we're talking about is the way in which we organize our writing, the very fundamental, basic way we organize our writing and our storytelling in order to communicate feeling and mood, all of those journeys of transformation. That's what we're basically doing. We are laying down the organizational foundations for the journey of transformation. We talked about there being four basic types of journey of transformation. We talked about the emotional, the experiential, the contextual, and the intentional. What going to look at today with this video is a way of starting to organize a story and a narrative along a particular pattern that can enhance and clarify each of those four types of movement. This is very, very basic stuff. Later on, we'll add a little bit more detail, a little bit more variation to it. But right now, this is the very, very basic foundational element of any type of creative writing, whether we're talking nonfiction, fiction, drama, or poetry. And that foundational element, that foundational map, foundational pattern looks like this. This is what we call a basic map. And we define that map within three basic boundaries or three basic units. What we have is a beginning and a middle and an ending. It sounds fairly basic and fairly straightforward, but I wanted to talk a little bit in a little bit more detail about what goes into a beginning and a middle and an ending. Again, keeping in mind that the principles that we're talking about here are applicable to any form of writing we're doing, nonfiction, fiction, drama, or poetry. So there are different ways that we can think of a beginning and a middle and an ending in terms of what they do, what function they perform within a story. Because we're talking about how we organize ideas and content in order to move a reader along in a narrative. We need to accomplish certain things in a beginning. We need to accomplish certain things in a middle. We need to accomplish certain things in an end. What I'm going to talk about first is the kind of things that do need to be accomplished in the beginning, in the middle. So first of all, in the beginning, we can think of it as a setup, as the portrayal of a situation, of normal, of the way things are, of a situation in which a person or character finds him or her or themselves in their everyday life, in their everyday circumstances. We find out who a person is. We find out the life that a person has. We find out a set of circumstance in which a person moves through his or her or their life. Again, we're essentially talking about a normal, a kind of normal way of being, of thinking, of feeling that is usual, that is everyday, that sets up the circumstances for change. Then when we're talking about a middle, what we're looking at is a number of things or a number of possibilities. We're looking at the development of a situation. We are looking at setting up of a conflict or the playing out or the development of conflict. We're looking for ways in which the situation at the beginning is changing, or ways in which the ways of thinking or being or functioning in the world are being challenged. That's a key point about a middle, is there is challenge, there is conflict, there is complication, there is confrontation. Things are happening in a middle that are causing transformation to occur, that are creating or triggering or leading to change in the normal that we portrayed or that we communicated in our beginning. A character or the person whose life we were considering or exploring in the beginning is being challenged, is being affected, is evolving, is growing, is becoming something different as a result of complication, challenge, conflict, either personal or situational or circumstantial. All of that comes in the middle. Very often things happen in a middle. In a piece of fiction or in a piece of drama, that's where the plot happens. In a piece of nonfiction, the middle is where the challenges or the circumstances or the events that create change in the person that you're writing about, whether it's you that you're writing about or someone that you know, the middle is where things happen to change the life, the identity, the perspective of that person. In fiction, in drama, things are happening to change the life of the character. In poetry, things are happening to change our experience of an emotion, a situation, a sensory or sensual. When we arrive at an ending in a piece of narrative, a structural ending shows what has happened, what has changed as a result of what's happened in the middle of the conflict. In the ending reveals a new normal. It shows how things are different from how they were at the beginning. They show how a person has become different. They show how a set of circumstances has become different. They show how a way of looking at the world has become different. They show how a feeling has become different. Again, we're arriving at a new normal. Another way of looking at the BME process, the beginning, middle, end process, the way I'll refer to it, by the way, as the BME, the beginning, end, that basic structure. We're looking at what was. We're looking at what happens or has happened. And we're looking at what comes into existence, what comes into being, what comes into the world, what comes into a life as a result of what happens or what happened. The beginning we can look at as yesterday. We can look at the middle as an evolution, a growth, change, and we look at an ending as tomorrow, a future. Past, present, future is one way. Now, a beginning and middle end isn't always about past, present, but it is about, again, that J of T, that journey of transformation, that movement from a beginning way of being towards an ending way of being, going through a middle of challenge and change and conflict, exploration, discovery, movement, growth. This is true of comedy, it's true of tragedy, it's true of fiction and nonfiction, drama, poem, movie, novel, stage play, whatever. Take a character, an image, an idea, you define it at the beginning, it moves, it transforms, it changes in the middle, and we examine what has come into being, has grown, what has emerged at the end of this particular journey of transformation, this BME, beginning, middle, and end. Now, look at the bottom of the screen. This is the beginning of one of the shortest stories that's ever been published. One of the shortest stories that's acknowledged as a story, with a beginning, with a middle, with an end, with a sense of transformation from beginning to middle to end. One of the basic functions of this BME structure, this beginning, middle, end structure, is to raise questions and to answer them eventually. So we raise questions in the beginning. We explore those questions, consider possible answers, consider meaning in the middle. And then to some degree, we answer those questions in an ending. Raising questions, considering questions, and answering or resolving questions. BME. These can be questions in the life or experience of a character, in the life or experience of the writer, or in the life or experience of simple experience, like in poetry, right? We are considering questions of what an image means or what an experience means when we're looking at poetry. So we're looking at, like I said, raising questions, considering questions, and answering questions as part of this story that begins with the two words for sale is a story that is 6 words long. These are the first two of 6 words. The story is written by Ernest Hemingway, who is widely regarded as one of the most influential, the most creative, the most individualistic writers in Western literature, in English literature. The way he used language, the way he developed ideas, the way he told stories had a profound effect on writing, on fiction, primarily fiction writing, but also some nonfiction writing. This story is his most distilled and concentrated piece of writing, arguably the most distilled, one of the most distilled and pieces of writing that is out there. And it begins with the 2 words, for sale, which functions well as a beginning. It sets a set of circumstances, it defines a set of circumstances, it defines a degree of normal. It sets up a kind of world, right? We all have a sense of things for sale and how things work. Right? What this also does is it raises questions. It raises the question of what is for sale. It raises the question of why whatever it is for sale. It raises questions perhaps of who is selling whatever it is. So we have a beginning, setting up a world, circumstances, question, circumstance, a situation, right? We want to know more. A story leads us as readers into wanting more, raising questions that we answer. In the middle, we develop possible answers and ideally raise some more questions as well. So the middle of this particular 6-word story, baby shoes. For sale, baby shoes. Now, questions have been answered. What is for sale? The baby shoes are for sale. Chances are good we have a sense of who is selling the baby shoes, probably someone affiliated with a family. Maybe parents, maybe grandparents, maybe the person who wore those baby shoes when they were. We don't know. Questions are still being raised in the middle, right? Questions are being answered, questions are being raised, there is a sense of conflict, there is a sense of tension, there is a sense of deepening. There is a sense of deepening in the story. We are getting further and further towards the truth that this story is considering, or a truth that this story is considering. So we have our beginning, we have our middle, and now we move towards an ending that we hope will answer all of the lingering questions. Why the baby shoes are being sold, who is selling them, the questions are being answered, the resolution to the sense of suspense, the sense of tension of the story, the sense of what's going to happen next in this telling of the story. We're going to find out. Beginning, for sale. Middle, baby shoes. Ending, never worn. Beginning raises the question, sets up a world, sets up a situation, sets up a circumstance that we understand, or have at least ideas about. The middle answers certain questions, raises more questions, takes us further into the world of the story, the meaning of the story, the truth of the story. The ending answers several questions raised by the beginning and the middle. Now we know why the baby shoes are for sale. The questions have been answered. Tension has been resolved. There is a conclusion to the movement of the narrative through this basic line of structure. We have a sense, even a sense of a kind of normal, a set of understanding, a deepening of understanding of what that normal is, and a new normal full of layers of implied understanding and implied emotion. Now you'll note the use of the word implied there. We still don't know why the baby shoes were never worn. There could be any number of reasons. Sometimes a story ends without full resolution. But the immediate question raised by the beginning of this story is answered. So even though there is not a sense of full information, there is a sense of completion about this story, about this little 6-word story, with its beginning, with its middle, and with its end. Its setup, its development, and its conclusion. So what we have is a basic template, a basic model of every type of storytelling that a human being is likely possible to encounter. Think about the stories that you've told to a friend at a bar, at a restaurant, over dinner, over the phone, over Zoom. Think about stories that you have been told by a friend or a parent or an elder. And just think about that structure. Think about the idea of beginning, middle, end, setup, development, resolution, questions, information, answers. Tiny sidebar. That basic beginning, middle, and end structure can also apply to academic writing as well. You think in terms of thesis or claim at the beginning. You think in terms of analysis, commentary, evidence in the middle. And you think of conclusion, results at an ending. Academic writing is, on some level, a basic form of narrative that follows that essential pattern. That aside, back to the foundation of any type of creative writing, fiction, nonfiction, drama, poetry, is that BME structure. As long as 7 Harry Potter books or 3 Lord of the Rings books were as short as 6 words. For sale, baby shoes. Never. Thank you.